Welcome everyone that's here to the District 52 Zoom webinar on Pathways featuring Tamala Takahashi, Distinguished Toastmaster for many, many years. She is our Chief Pathways Ambassador, if that's correct. And for now, for the next hour, she is going to entertain and regale you with jokes, comments. She's going to do some dancing and explain pathways. Hold your questions, and if you do feel that you do have a question though that is relevant to the spot that she is on at the moment, unmute yourself and then ask the question. And there's also, if you haven't found it, there's a chat. If you click on the chat button, you'll be able to pop up a Zoom group chat, and you can send a chat to everyone or to just her or to maybe just the person who just left a message or just spoke. Tamala, go for it.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, as Mark said, I'm the chief. Yes,
I'm Mark Richards. I didn't even introduce myself. I'm Mark Richards. I'm the DTM. I'm with Quest in Valencia. What clubs are you with, Tamala?
Right now, I'm with Media City Toastmasters and the Past District Directors Club 407 in Brea.
Past district governor.
Yes.
I'm so bad.
I'm actually the president of that club right now, which is fun. It's fun to be around a lot of other people who've also been district director. It's an interesting dynamic.
There you go.
So, have you started recording already, Mark?
Oh, it started. It's recording. Yes.
Okay, great. I wanted to point out, and the people who are watching the recording, that for the most part, we're going to go through an outline that we have that is available to any of the clubs that want to share this with their clubs. If you want to get a copy of it, you can email me at my email address, which is tamala.takahashi @gmail.com. We can review that at the end too. Or you can email Mark and I'll give him a copy too. I also want to explain that this walkthrough tonight is not an extensive, exhaustive dive into pathways. It is an introduction to the pathways program so that you can be functional and do what you need to do to be able to go through the program in your club. If you are on pathways, first of all, actually, Mark, can you see my shared screen with the pathways up? You can, great, okay. So when we go into pathways, I'm going to show you, we're going to walk through it. There are so many things to do in pathways, lots of bells and whistles, lots of rabbit holes to go down. And what I'm going to show you tonight is the areas that are the most important, the most essential for you. And that's where I encourage you to stay focused until you are comfortable with the program. Okay. Also, I wanted to just say that this area behind me here is if you're curious what it is, that's my yarn wall. I'm a knitter and crocheter, so that's all yarn, knitting, and crochet books, just in case you're wondering what that is behind me there.
Well, see, I thought it was all books.
No, so that's some books, and then there's yarn. That's all yarn right there. And then I do have some hockey paraphernalia up there, but it's mostly yarn and some books. Sorry. Great, okay, so let's get started. Tonight I'll be running through 4 major things about pathways. Number 1, we're going to talk about how to log in and get started with pathways. Number 2, we're going to talk about how to work on a project and how to finish your project so that you can move on to the next one. Third thing we're going to talk about is how to finish a level, which we'll explain what that is in a minute, how to finish that and submit it for recognition in your club and for credit. And then lastly, for those of you who are on the executive council, president, secretary, or VPE of your club, or who want to know the back end of how things are approved, we're going to go briefly at the very end over how the different levels are approved by the officers. Okay. And as Mark said, let's hold questions till the end unless you feel like it's really confusing and you need to pop in and unmute yourself and ask a question. That's okay. And unfortunately, sometimes the conversations can get a little bit off the rails, and so we want to keep it really focused. But if it's something that's confusing, If you need a little bit of clarification, that's fine to pop in with a question. And then there'll be ample time at the end for Q&A. Okay. So we're gonna start with logging into Pathways. This is the screen when you go to toastmasters.org. This is the screen that you're gonna get with these menus up here at the top. And at the very tip top, a place to log in. This login area here is where you log in for everything you do in Toastmasters. You log in there to manage your Toastmasters personal account. You log in there if you're an officer to manage your club. You log in there to do Pathways. So we're gonna log in here. It's frozen on me. There it goes. Okay, so it logged me in. And now that I'm logged in, you can tell I'm logged in because it tells me at the top, welcome Tamala. And that means I'm logged in. Once you're logged into your account, you can go to the Pathways tab, click on it once, and you can go to Pathways. When you first start at the very, very beginning of Pathways, I recommend you choose your path. I do not recommend doing these other things. I recommend going straight to choose your path. Hey, Mark, I think there's somebody who might be unmuted who has some background noise. So if there's anybody who's unmuted,
we'll find out.
Thank you. Now, interestingly, this page here it just landed us on is the same page you would get to if you do go to Basecamp. They both lead you to the same place. So these are the two places you'll click. I would ignore all this other stuff for now and just focus on these two here. Choose a path or go to Basecamp. They both land you in the same location, which is basically the splash page for Pathways. For these three little rectangles here that have information on them, you will use the two here called Choose Your Path and Access My Path through Basecamp. The Choose Your Path section, this is where if you're brand new to Pathways for the first time, this is where you can take a quiz and it will ask you a series of questions about what it is that you'd like to achieve in Toastmasters, or what it is that you want to achieve at work, or what it is that you are working on in your personal development. And based on the answers to your questions, it will suggest to you one of the paths and Pathways. Now, for those of you who may not know, Pathways is the educational program for Toastmasters. And in the educational program, we have 11 different paths or different topics you can choose. There are topics like presentation skills, dynamic leadership, and the brand new one, which is humor. And most or all of the paths have some combination of speaking and leadership development. Some have more emphasis on leadership, some have more emphasis on speaking, but they all have some sort of combination. And this quiz will give you a suggestion on which path that you might want to choose. Some people have asked me, do you have to pick the path that they suggest? No, you do not have to pick the path they suggest. If you have a path that you know you want to take, or you'd like to take a path different from what they suggested, you are absolutely able to do that. When a member joins Toastmasters, they automatically get one free path. That comes with the membership fee. So that will be an automatic path that you get just by being a Toastmaster. You can get additional paths for $20 a piece if you want to do more than one path at a time, or after you want to do the single path, you can add a second path for $20. Once you've chosen your path, and the reason why I'm not showing it to you is because I've already chosen my paths. So when I go in it, it won't let me do it. But if you are brand new and you choose your path, it'll let you go through the quiz. I can show you the results. So here, I'll show you that. Oh no, it won't let me do it because I have to pay money. If I want to get another path, I have to pay the money. So that's why. Okay, I will go back. Once you've chosen one or more paths, now the next section you're going to go to is Access My Path through Basecamp. Now you may notice here that there is a drop-down menu where it says Select Your Club. Earlier I mentioned that I'm in 2 clubs. So it's asking me which club do I want to access Pathways through, my past district Governors Directors Club or my home club, Media City Toastmasters. I will go with Media City Toastmasters since I'm not an officer in that club. So now that I've selected Media City Toastmasters, it gives me the option to go to Basecamp. So I'm going to click that. Basecamp is basically the name of the central area of Pathways. Now, you'll notice here probably that it's giving me a little pop-up asking me to do like a tutorial. I'm just going to close that. I'll explain later why that pops up, even though I've done Pathways a million times. Now, there's a number of buttons here, and the only button in the beginning that you need is Education Transcript, Access My Path. In the very beginning, ignore all the other buttons. Only focus on Education Transcript, Access My Path. Now, this button here will lead you to a page where you will then be able to move forward in Pathways. But I want to just point out that that page, a snapshot of that page appears a little lower in this screen. So you don't have to actually click on that to get to maybe your more frequently accessed parts of your Pathways work. So the last 5 things you've accessed will show up here on this little quick view down here. But if I click here on Education Transcript, when I go to the full page, it'll show me the exact same thing I just saw on that quick view, but just in a little bit more expanded view of it. Okay, I'm gonna go back where it was. So when you scroll down a little bit and you see this quick view here, sometimes it's not clear which one of these of the quick view are your actual path you're working on. Like I said earlier, there's lots of bells and whistles and lots of different things to do in Pathways. And every time you click on something or start working on something, it will show up in this education transcript. But the path is the thing that you want to work on in order to get credit in your club. Your path, your assigned path, is the one that you want to work on in order to move forward in your program. In order to identify which is your path, you can know by where it says open curriculum. So dynamic leadership is my path I'm working on. So open curriculum is what it's going to say. And if I go and click on education transcript and looked on my other fully fleshed out listings, it will say the same thing, open curriculum. And that's how I know that that's my path. I have another path down here, visionary communication, same thing, open curriculum. This other stuff doesn't have it. Now this here does say open curriculum, but this is a side path that you get called a mentor program once you finish level 2 or 3, I think it's 2. Once you finish level 2, you have access to this mentor program. It's basically a little bit of an offshoot of one of the paths, but you won't get it till later. All right, so we're gonna go up to the dynamic leadership, which is the path that I am working on, and the open curriculum. And when you click on that, what's gonna happen is you're going to come to a page that gives you all of the progress that you've made so far in your path. Now, every path, every one of the 11 paths has 5 levels. And in each level, you have several projects to complete. That's level 3. This one's level 2. This one's level 1. And I'll show you my level 4 that I'm working on right now. Okay. So this is how the breakdown is. You have a path, and each path has 5 levels. And in each level, there's multiple projects. Okay. So we're going to explore level 1 because that's the one you're going to start on. And every single level 1 looks exactly the same. No matter which path you're using, your level 1 will look the same as all the other paths. Every level 1 has an icebreaker, evaluation and feedback, researching and presenting. Those are on every single level 1. And when you first start the program, all you're going to see is the icebreaker, nothing else. Well, you'll see it, but it'll be grayed out. And then the first project you're going to work on is the icebreaker. Now you may notice there's some check marks here. Those check marks mean that I have completed those projects. But once I've completed them, I still can launch them and do them again or look at them again if I want. So we're going to open up the icebreaker and I'm going to launch it. This is a point right here where a lot of the issues come up with the technology for Pathways. So I'm going to pause a little bit here and discuss this, but I'm going to click the launch button. So what just happened, but you don't see it because you're on a shared screen, is a pop-up window came up.
You can share it.
Yeah, I'm going to share that one just in a second here. But before I share my pop-up window, I want to talk about how sometimes if you push that button on your computer, sometimes nothing happens. And what that means, if nothing happens when you click that button, that your settings might not be properly set so that you can have a pop-up window. So if you click this button and nothing happens, or there's an error message, or there's a spinny thing that never stops spinning, or something happens that doesn't seem right and there's no pop-up window, I recommend going to the tab that says check compatibility. And when you click on check compatibility, it takes you to a screen that lets you know if all of your settings are properly set up. And the most common error is right here in pop-up blockers. When you click this, if it's red, like my cookies is red, if the pop-up blockers is red, it'll tell you what you need to do to make it green. And that solves about 90% of the problems with pop-up blockers right there. Okay. And some of you may be wondering why my cookies tab is red, and I was talking earlier about the little pop-up of the walkthrough or the instructions. I don't have my cookies on, so, oops, somebody has got their microphone on, if we can mute them. I don't have cookies on, so, or I have them off. So it doesn't keep track of what I do. So every time I log into Pathways, it thinks I'm starting from the beginning. So it gives me all these pop-up like instructions, like click here, click there. I prefer to keep my cookies off in general on my browsers. So generally I don't turn them on, but it doesn't keep it from being able to use the technology. However, if you're having trouble on your computer and something's not working right, you could turn your cookies on and see if it helps. But it doesn't seem to bother my computer, so I leave them off. All right, so let's assume that your pop-up window is working. And then I'm going to show you what it looks like. If I can find it, there it is. Okay. Did it come up?
Yes.
Great. The icebreaker? Okay.
Sorry,
a man and a woman clapping. It says
yes.
Congratulations. Okay, good. So this is the pop-up window that you'll see, but actually what you're seeing is the end of the project because I finished it already. I'm going to take us to the beginning, but before I do that, I want to note something. Very often when this pop-up window comes up, you get something like this, where you see some words and maybe a picture, and it's really not clear what to do. Because there's an error with the technology that when the pop-up windows come up, it's not a full pop-up window. So you have to take the corner, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it on your screen, but I'm putting my arrow down into the corner and I'm pulling the window bigger. Can you see that?
A little bit. There we go.
Can you see the window getting bigger? So now you can see the full window. Okay. So basically what I did is I took my little cursor and I grabbed the corner of the window and I made it bigger to expand out so I can see the entire thing. Because when you first get the pop-up window, you only see this much of the screen. So you have to pull the screen out to see the whole thing. If you're using a tablet, that shouldn't be a problem, but it's a very common issue on computers, and it's a sticky point sometimes when you have a new user or you're mentoring a new user in your club and they don't know what to do once they've launched their path and this pop-up window comes up, they don't know what to click or where to go. So that's one of the reasons why it seems confusing in the beginning, is because there's no obvious place to go because it's too small. Okay. So this is actually what comes up when you first open your window, is the navigation. Or actually, maybe I think it's this one. Icebreaker, there it is, right here. This is the front splash screen. And when you first start, you may be able to get this begin button, but you're not going to get this little menu here. And so expanding that screen lets you see it. And then when you click begin, you want to have access to these arrows here on the left and right. So you need the screen to be bigger so you can see the arrows left and right. Okay, so that's a common frustration in the beginning. But once you figure that out and you know how to do it, it's easy to fix. Also, just to mention that this menu here pops you to any part of the path at any point. So if you get too far, you want to go ahead or whatever, you can in there. In the icebreaker, it gives you little instructions on how to navigate. And the main way you navigate is to use these arrows left and right. That's how you get through all of the projects. You manage, progress through the projects by using these arrows here. Every single one, all the way through the levels.
You mean the screens in the project?
Yes,
Yes.
Yep. Little introduction, kind of telling you what the project's about. Okay, this just popped up a directions tab. And this is another sticky point too, for those of you who are thinking you might mentor somebody else, is that this isn't always obvious what to do when this comes up to make this go away. And the way that you make this go away is you click on the blue tab and it'll make it go away if you want it to go away. You can always bring it back up by clicking it again and bring it back down. Okay. If you see a blue tab of any of your screens, you can always click it to get more information here. Okay. Your assignment. Every single project in the Pathways program has a page called Your Assignment and a project checklist. This is where you can click on that. It'll give you a PDF of everything that is required for this project, and you can print it out if you want to or save it on your computer. I recommend that when you start a new project that you print this out so that you know what your project is. Okay. Then after that project checklist window, here the assignment, the next window almost always will be assessing your skills. So every single project in Pathways starts with a little quiz to give you a pre-quiz to assess your skills on that particular thing that you're working on for that project. It'll give you a series of questions that you answer on scale 1 to 5. And a little bit tricky bit here too is that to navigate this quiz, you don't use the arrows. To navigate the quiz itself inside this window, you use the back and the next buttons. So you answer the questions and you go next. Answer the questions and go next. And you have to go and you have to answer all the questions and go to the very, very end. And then a button will show that says submit. You have to finish that quiz, and then there'll be another quiz at the end. You have to finish that in order to progress through your project. Okay, so you need to do that. And once you finish that quiz and you hit submit, then you can move on, put the little arrow here. And it'll give you some more information about your project, how to use, for this front, it tells you how to use Pathways, et cetera, et cetera. The little outline for how to do a speech. Some more information, and you can read this on your own when you go through the project the first time. It's a little video of how to do it. Whenever you see these little rectangles here, this usually means there's more information. So you can click on it to read more information about it. It doesn't say click here to read more information. You have to just kind of figure it out. But anytime you see those, you can click on it. Okay, some more information about the project. Read more about that. And then the project checklist again, in case you didn't get it the first time. A little bit more about what you need to do for the project. Okay, now at the end of every project before you finalize it, there will be an opportunity to print out your evaluation. This is what you print out and give to your evaluator for them to be able to evaluate your speech. Every single project has a speech tied to, at least one speech tied to it. And this evaluation resource is what you will be evaluated with. Now, we'll talk a little bit later about what happens if you forget to bring this evaluation sheet, but the easiest thing is to click on that and print it out and give it to your evaluator. Another great thing about this evaluation form is the evaluation form gives you a very quick and concise overview of what it is that the project and the speech is asking you to do. So if you read the project checklist and you're not really sure what the speech is supposed to be on, print out your evaluation and that will give you a more clear idea of what your speech is actually supposed to be about. Sometimes the project will ask you to do some things about self-evaluation or practicing something or to work on something, but the speech is about something else. It's not about those parts, it's about maybe what you learned in the process, or give an example of how you use this skill somewhere in your life, or that kind of thing. So look closely at the evaluation so you can see what it's about, you know, for your speech. You get to this point, you print your evaluation out, and this is when you go to the club and you do your speech. You do your speech, you get evaluated, and then you come back to this project and you move forward. And it shows you, right now it's showing you a screen with the results of my quiz, but the first time you go through it, it'll give you the quiz again to see how your results are, how you feel about your skills after you've given your speech. You go through the quiz. Let's see if I can make it go away. Sometimes I can. No. Oh, there. Yay, I made it go away. Okay, so when you get to it the first time, you'll see these questions again, and you'll have to navigate it with the next button. And this is very important. When it comes up to the submit button here, you have to submit this quiz or it will not let you finish the project. So this is a very important quiz here to let the system know that you finished your speech, you got your evaluation, and you're ready to finish your project. So once you hit the submit button, that screen will pop up that you just saw a minute ago, and then you can move forward. And it'll say, congratulations, you're all done. Once you've finished that project, then you are done with the icebreaker. Now this is another sticky bit right here, where sometimes you get to the end of a project, it says congratulations, and it's really not clear what you do next. So the thing that you do next to finish your project is you click on the window to make it go away and disappears. Boop. And it's gone. Let me go back to sharing my other screen. Here. Where'd it go? My share screen button disappeared. Hold on a second. There it is. Okay. So that's how you do a project. And when you go back to your icebreaker project, it should have a little check mark. After you close that window, the check mark should appear automatically. If that check mark does not appear, what it means is that one of those two quizzes was not fully answered and submitted. The way to make the check mark show up is to answer the quizzes and then go all the way to the end of the project. Okay. So each one of these projects has the same process where you launch the window, you print out your project checklist, you do the first quiz, the pre-quiz, read through all the material about what you're working on, print out your evaluation form, do your speech, get evaluated, come back and do your second quiz, and then go to the end and close the window. So we're going to go through that again one more time. For every one of these projects, you open up the window, you print out the project checklist, you take the quiz, the first quiz, read through all the material to understand what you're working on and to get instruction, print out the evaluation form, do your speech and get evaluated, come back and do the post quiz, and then go to the end of the project and close the window. And that is how you do a project, and it will show a little check mark. Boop, just like that for everyone. Now, most of the projects have one speech in them, but there's a few projects that have more. The evaluation and feedback, sorry, that's my dog barking, if you can hear him. The evaluation and feedback one, for example, has 2 speeches and an evaluation in it. So you will see as you go along, there'll be 3 different evaluation forms, 2 for the speeches and 1 for the evaluation. And then researching and presenting is 1 speech. After you've done the icebreaker and you get the little check mark, both the evaluation and feedback and the researching and presenting will light up, and you should be able to launch both of them. And you can work on them in whatever order you want, and you can work on them at the same time. In fact, I recommend doing that. I recommend launching both up, reading through all of them so you know what you're supposed to do, and being ready and prepared to work on either of them, because Since evaluation and feedback requires 2 speeches and an evaluation, it sometimes can get hard to schedule all that in order. And if you're waiting to be scheduled as an evaluator, for example, or as a speaker, you can do your other work for the researching and presenting while you're waiting. So I recommend doing that. And then once all of these check marks are checked off, the 1, 2, 3, and they're all done, then this last one, the level 1 completion, the little button will light up and you can click on it to complete your level. And when you do that, there will be a little check mark there. Okay, so that's a basic overview of how to get started and use the path in Pathways. Make sure I got all that stuff. Oh, I wanted to mention a couple things before we move on. If we go back to the screen where this one. Go back to the screen where it says access my path through Basecamp. I want to mention that if you are in more than one club, just like I am here, that it's very important that when you finish that level, when you get to the end, that you are checked onto the club that you want to approve your level, that you want to have them see that you finished your level. You can work on your projects, the individual projects, in any club you want. But when it's time to finish your level, it's important to have the particular club you want selected, because the VPE, the president, and the secretary will only see it if you have your club selected here on the menu. Okay. I also wanted to mention too that if you are an officer in your club, that you will see a little bit of different selection here. It's taking a second. It may not let me. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So if you are an officer of your club, like I'm a president in my club, in this club, I not only can go to Basecamp, but I can log in as a Basecamp manager. So if you are a president, secretary, or VPE of your club, you will also see the login as Basecamp manager button as well. You'll see both of them. So this go to Basecamp is the button that you would push for yourself to work on your own projects. And the login as Basecamp manager, we'll talk about in a minute, that's the button you push as an officer of your club. Okay. I just wanted to mention that. And okay. So again, just a reminder that when you see all these buttons, the one that you want is education transcript, or you can use the quick view down here. I wanted to also show you level 4 here, because I wanted to show you how when you finish a level, which I'll explain a little bit in a minute on how to wrap up a level to get credit. But when you finish a level and you go on to your next level, you'll be able to see the entire level, all of your projects. When you start level 1, the very, 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 very beginning, you only can see your icebreaker. But after that, when you go on to level 2 and you go on to level 3, et cetera, you can see the entire level, all of the projects in the level, and you can launch all of them. I recommend that when you go to a new level, you get to level 2 or level 3, I recommend you launching all of them and understanding what you need to do for each project. This is particularly true when you get to the higher levels because the projects get long, some of them. Some of the elective projects can take a couple months to do because it requires outside work outside of your club. You may have to run an event. You may have to arrange a meeting or to do a panel or to be a speaker at an outside event. So these things can sometimes take time to manage and run through the projects. And if you did all the projects in order, that might make your experience very, very slow. So my suggestion is to, when you get to a level, is to launch all of the levels, not at the same time, but launch them all to know that what they consist of, so you know what you need to do, and then plan out how you're going to do all of your projects kind of together at the same time. As you finish the projects, it will show here your percentage completion level. And then when you get to 100%, you can finish your level. So what happens when you finish your level is that it will ask you to, let's see if level 3 will show me. No, well, okay. So when you finish your level, it will ask you to, I forget the exact wording. I think it's mark complete or submit or something like that, where basically it's saying, click this button to let your club know that you finished a level. And what happens is when you click that and you finish your level, a message is sent to your club to let them know that you're ready for them to approve it so you can move on to the next level. You can't move on to the next level until one of the 3 people I mentioned earlier, the president, the secretary, or VPE, until one of them goes in and approves your level. So you want to make sure that you have, if you're in more than one club, you have the club that you know is the most responsive and quick. And also you want to make sure that the club that you're sending it to, they know to expect it. So one of the questions I've received in the past, and it's a good one, is where does that message go? Who sees the notice that you finished your level? And right now, the way it's set up is that the person who is your contact person on the Toastmasters website is the person who receives that notice you finished the level. So if you were to log into toastmasters.org in the main website and look up your club, and it has listed there where you meet, what time you meet at, what day, and it also has an email address there to say who to contact to find out more about your club. That's the person who receives the notice that you finished your level. If that person is not a president, secretary, or VPE, it's up to you to contact your president, VPE, or secretary personally and let them know you finished your level. And then I'll show you in a little bit what they see so they know that how to approve that. But they're the ones who will approve it. And once they approve it, then your next level will automatically open up and you can start working on your next level. Okay. And let's see. Okay. One other thing before I ask a little bit, see if ask for questions, is that when you submit your level and you ask for your VPE or president or secretary to approve it, that approval is just for you personally to be able to move on to the next level. That is separate and different than getting credit for your club. So most of you are probably familiar with the Distinguished Club program that we have in Toastmasters. And one of the ways that the clubs get points for the Distinguished Club program is for the individual members to achieve their educational goals. And for the club to get credit for those points is a separate mechanism than you getting approval for moving on to your next level. So you're going to need to have a conversation with your club president or secretary or VPE and talk to them about whether or not you want to give credit to your club for that level or not. And it's up to you to decide as the member of what you want to do. So if you are only in one club, this is a conversation that doesn't really need to be had because you only have one club. So both your personal movement in the Pathways program and the credit will go to the same club. But if you're a member of more than one club, you'll have to have a discussion with your leadership to decide which club you want to get credit for. Okay. All right. If that is confusing at all, please let me know and I will clarify it. Okay. Okay. That is the basics. Oh, one other thing. I'm sorry, I forgot. One other thing. There's also the area where you can get all of the evaluations, which I think is important for, especially if you are an officer of your club. So if you are an officer of your club, especially, there's an area you can get all of the evaluations for all of the projects. It's called the speech evaluation section here. If you are new and you're just here to learn about how yourself can go through the program, I recommend getting your evaluation forms through your education transcript because going into the speech evaluation sections is really overwhelming. It's hard to find things. But if you're an officer of your club or you want to help somebody find an evaluation who may have forgotten to bring them, you can find every single evaluation form in the speech evaluation section here. Okay, see how they're all listed? These are all the evaluation forms here in alphabetical order. So icebreaker is the first one down here. And what I recommend to clubs to help their new Pathways members is to print out the evaluation forms for level 1 and level 2. So remember, level 1 is the same for all the paths. So there's 5 evaluations for that. Print them out. And then level 2 is similar. I think there's 3 or 4 variations on the theme, but they're all really similar. And it ends up being about 10 or 12 evaluation forms between level 1 and level 2. If you have all of those printed out and in a little folder, then if one of your new members who's new to Pathways forgot to bring their evaluation form, then you can pull it out of the folder. So it makes it easier for new members to be evaluated in case they forgot. Okay. But if you are here tonight just for your own path and Pathways, I recommend not going there and instead going through your education transcript and using the evaluation form there. There's some other fun bells and whistles and stuff that you can explore later, but this is the main tool set that you'll need to get through your pathway. Okay. So before we move on to the Basecamp Manager and how to approve your levels, does anybody have any questions? Is there any area that you're confused or anywhere that maybe I missed explaining that you'd like to ask? Somebody asked a question, are the evaluation forms digitally executable? And what I understand that question to be is, can somebody fill out the evaluation forms online? Yes, that's actually possible. So they're all PDFs. What you can do is you can email or share in a Dropbox or some other sharing way, Google Docs, with another person, and they can, on their tablet or on their computer or on their phone, if they're very good at editing PDFs on their phone, they can fill out your evaluation online. In fact, I did that once where I was doing I think one of these presentations, or I was doing a training or something, and I realized that it worked well for my next Pathways project. So I quickly emailed somebody in the room my evaluation form, and they did my evaluation right there in the presentation and then emailed it back to me at the end of the meeting. So you can do that if you want. Absolutely. Yeah, good question. Good questions? No questions at all.
We're all pros.
I know, wow.
Tamala,
Mark, is there anything I missed? Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Benny.
Hi, Tamala.
How are you, Benny?
Pretty good. I'm just a little, I guess some of the same issues are going on here because I printed my project checklist.
Mm-hmm.
It says, schedule your speech with the VP of Education, and the next box is write your first speech for the project.
Yeah.
Like I'm doing the presentation mastery, but there's not a lot of guidance as far as writing your speech.
Is this the Icebreaker project?
It's the one right after that.
Okay.
The first speech.
So the how to write a speech guidance is in the Icebreaker project. So you can go back to the Icebreaker project. It's about 2/3 of the way through. There's a little outline guidance thing that you can print out that helps you write your speech.
Okay. Yeah, I must have missed it. All right.
Yeah, so it's if you go about 2/3 of the way through the Icebreaker, there is a PDF that you can click that gives you like an outline form that you can use.
Okay, no wonder. I was surprised. I was like, where's the guidance for this? It was in the previous one. All right. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Somebody asked Mark, can you mute the person who's...
Yeah, I'm trying to do that.
Thank you very much.
Benny?
Somebody asked in the speech evaluation screen, how do we know which evaluations relate to levels 1 and 2? That's a good question. They don't mark it on the screen. So as the VPE or whoever's printing them out, what I recommend you do is find somebody who's been through the paths and look at which ones they are and just see the titles of them. So for example, I'll go back to mine. Okay, so level 1 is icebreaker, evaluation and feedback, and then that one has 3, 1, 2, and 3. If you look at the evaluation forms, they're numbered 1, 2, and 3. Researching and presenting. So those ones you'll know everybody will go through those. So those ones you can look at them alphabetically. And then for level 2, it's understanding your leadership style, understanding your communication style, introduction to Toastmasters mentoring, and then there's a couple more. Let's see. I think it's understanding. I have to look it up. There's 1 or 2 other ones as well. If you would like me to look them up for you, I can, or you can see if I can look them up for you exactly what they are. You probably can find them online too. I'm sure that there's, I know that there's a map of all of the evaluation forms. In fact, for those of you who have chat window, I'm going to type it in here. The URL with every detail you could ever want about every single path. If you go to this website, this should have a bunch of resources in there, and one of them is a big chart with all of the paths and what you need to do and the whole like maze. It's about, it's a poster size PDF. Oops. I accidentally sent it to one person. I'm going to post it again publicly. Sorry. There we go. Bill asked, when you complete a segment or a level, when you complete a level and you're a member of multiple clubs, are all the clubs notified of the progress? No, just like I said earlier in the way that Mark responded as well, it's just the club that you have selected on your main screen. So once that's really important that when you click that button and you finish the level, that you are logged in to the club that you want to be sent to, because they're the only ones who are going to see it. Even if you change to another club, it's going to be just that one that you sent it to. So it's important to know which one you send it to. If you're a member of more than one club, I highly recommend picking the club that is the fastest responder, that you know that you can actually text them or you can contact them and they will respond. I do not recommend relying on that automated process right now. I know they're working on it. They're working on trying to find a way that it will send to the president, VPE, and secretary. But right now it sends to whoever's your contact person for your website or for the Toastmasters International, and it's not reliable. So if you finish a level, I recommend you not only click that button, but also email or text your president and or VPE to have them tell them directly that you finished your level and you need to have them approve it, and they'll log in. Okay. Anything else before we move on to the Basecamp stuff? All right, one more thing I want to mention before we get to move on to that is if you come across anything weird, like there's a weird error message, or it won't load something, or you click on something, it's not doing what it's supposed to do, or anything that's technology based, I highly recommend calling Toastmasters. Most of that stuff, the Pathways team in District 52 can't help you with. We can't help you if there's an error with submitting your level. We can't help you if it doesn't load. We can't help you if it gives you an error message, but Toastmasters International can. And there was a situation where somebody had been given approval and they were supposed to be moving on to level 2 and it didn't open up for them. That's something that Toastmasters can only do on the back end and fiddle with their settings over there. There's nothing that anyone can do on the outside. So if you face anything that's weird like that, I highly recommend calling them. But if you have questions about how to complete your level, what the assignments mean, or what's the best way to satisfy them, or that kinds of questions, that's what the Pathways team here is to help you with. we can help you navigate the basic functionalities of the program. And earlier in our meeting and before we started the recording, Mark had mentioned to me about how the 2 paths that you do for your DTM, that's only the first half of your path to DTM. So you do your first path, you do your second path, and then there's actually more after that needs to be done on top of that. So if you're interested, if you're getting farther along in your paths and you want to know what comes next, that's something we can help you with as well, of how to navigate the things after these 2 paths that you do. I think I forgot to mention earlier that there's for the DTM that requires 2 paths. I didn't mention that earlier. Yeah, Mark.
Question for you. Okay, so I didn't realize this, but in level 5, one of the electives is a panel discussion.
Okay.
I'm doing a panel discussion on Wednesday. I'm doing it because I was asked to do it by a local college.
Oh, cool.
I didn't realize it was an elective project in Pathways until just right now. But I can't open it because I have to have completed prior projects.
Right.
Is there a way to see what actually is required of me to get credit for that?
Yes. So the simple way is to download the evaluation form for that project. And you'll see the evaluation form on there, what your speech will be on. So that gives you an idea.
Okay.
The project checklists, though, are not accessible until you get into the actual level.
Right.
So if there's anything that needs to be done prior to that speech, because the evaluation form is just for the speech. So if there's anything that needs to be done prior to the speech itself, let's say, I don't know, when you're on the panel I don't know, but there might be, but I haven't done that one. But those things you won't know until you get to the level. So for something that's simple, say that one actually seems pretty simple to me. I think that probably would be pretty straightforward. You could download the evaluation and see what it says. My guess is it's pretty straightforward. Yeah. That probably is doable ahead of time. But if for more complicated projects, you're going to have to wait, which is unfortunate. You could also find somebody who has access to it on their own computer, like they've already done it, or they picked that elective, so they have access to it, and ask them to print the project list for you. You could do that too.
Really, the only thing that it says is it just says, what does it say? Pending prior training. All of the electives, that's what they say. So I can't do any of the electives in 5 or 4.
Yes, because you don't have access to them yet.
Right.
Let me see if I have access to that one in my level 3 electives or level 4 electives.
I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think it's just a level 5.
Okay, I'm level 4.
Yeah, I think
I don't have those ones on there. Okay. So find somebody who has access to level 5, and then you can have them give you, if you want to get the checklist for it. That's probably available online somewhere too. So Toastmasters International, their intention is they would like you to do these things in order. They want you to run through the program, finish the level, and then move on to the next level. And so because of that reason, they don't give you access to those materials until you get there. And I think that for the most part, that works out fine, because the way that they have it structured is that the projects get more and more complicated and more difficult. So the idea is that if you're on a panel, it's going to be a more complicated and difficult thing than if you, like one of my level 4 elective projects is to write a blog post. So, I mean, I think that there's, they want you to do more complicated things, but the real reality of the world is that some of these things take a long time, and you have to grab the opportunity when you can. So how often are you going to be on a panel, right? Maybe a lot for some people, but for some of us, being on a panel is a rare opportunity. So if you're going to be on that panel and you have that possible elective, I say grab it. I say you can go ahead and find someone who has it, or it's probably available online somewhere too. Someone's probably posted it. At least the basics of what they're going to ask you to do, if not the details. So, and go ahead and do it. And then when you get to that one and you get to that level, you can go through and you make sure to do the speech afterwards about it and get evaluated on the speech, and then you can get credit for it. Yep. Good question. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to the Basecamp Manager and how your officers, if you are an officer, how you will give your member credit and allow them to move on to the next level. And if you are not an officer, then you at least know how it works so that you know what you're asking for when you're asking for that from your officer. Okay. Okay, so if you are a Basecamp manager, you have to go all the way back to the very beginning of Pathways. It's not letting me, so I'm going to go back using my browser. To the very first page where you can select your club. If you're a Basecamp manager, you have to select the club that you are a president, secretary, or VPE. Select that club and then log in as a Basecamp manager. Okay. So for your main time spent on Basecamp management is on pending requests. You can do other stuff in here too, but the pending request is like where you're going to spend 95% of your time. You click on that, and then it gives you a screen where it shows if anybody is ready to have their level approved, it will show their name here and it'll show which level. Okay. Now, something to note here, important to note, is that when it shows up all this information, what's going to happen is on the right over here under options, it's going to give you little boxes, one green X and, sorry, one green check mark and one red X. And they're really small and they're really close together. So be very sure and careful that you're clicking the check mark to approve their level. If you click the X, then it denies their level, and then it's difficult to go back and have to get it approved again. It's possible, but it's kind of a pain. So it slows down the whole process.
Why would you deny somebody the level?
I don't know why they provide that option. Maybe, I don't know. That's a really good question. The only thing I can think of is if the person accidentally, I don't know, gave the wrong club. I don't know, but it wouldn't matter because once you get the approval, you move on. So I really don't know of a situation where that would be needed, but that's there. So when you're going in to give them approval, just make sure you're careful, especially if you're on a tablet, careful to click the right button and it's a check. As soon as you click that check button, it's green and you check it, then it will disappear off your screen and then the member can go in to the next level. It'll show up right away.
It's 8:30 now.
Okay.
Would you like to stop, continue? The program was scheduled to run for an hour.
Okay, we started at 7:35 and I have about 5 minutes left of material and then we're done.
Perfect.
So, and if anyone wants to stay for questions, I'm willing to stay for questions. Okay, so the last bit then, after you've done that, that goes through. Now the last bit though, is if you want to get credit for your club, you have to separately go back to the main Toastmasters webpage under Leadership Central and Club Central. And then you can give credit under Submit Education Awards. And I'm going to select, let's see, I'll select Serena McCullough, our PQD. She's in the club with me. So if she was ready to get approval, I would go up here to Online Motivational Strategies, Level 2. And that's what I would pick to give her credit. I won't do that because then I'll give her credit when she shouldn't be getting credit. But if I were to do that, that's where I'd give her credit for the club. So that gives the DCP credit for the club. So let's say Serena finished Level 2 I went in that other screen we were just in and did the little green check mark. Then she would be able to go on to level 3. And then she said, Tamala, I also want to give our club the DCP credit. That's when I would come in here and I would give her credit there.
Wait,
okay?
wait. You check the green check mark. Okay. Why is that not automatically submitting the educational one?
There's 2 reasons. The number 1 reason is technology. Pathways is a completely separate database and system than the main Toastmasters club management database. They're 2 completely separate and they don't talk to each other.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's just.
Yeah, I know, right? So
it's technology-wise,
they just don't work together yet. That is also on the list, by the way. That's on the list what I'm working on. The second reason, though, is a more, I guess, personal reason, in that if a member is a member of multiple clubs, the club that is the most quick to give approval may not be the club that you want to actually give credit to. Or maybe you haven't decided yet which club you want to give credit to. So you want to hold on to the credit, but you want to keep moving through your path. So having them separate like that allows you to keep going through your path and to hold on to those finished paths until you're ready to give credit to the clubs that you want to give them to. So an example would be this club that I'm the president of. Everyone in that club is either a past district director or currently sitting on the trio, which means that we all have other clubs we belong to. We have our home clubs, probably have multiple clubs. We want to probably find out what our main clubs need first, and then give the rest of our credit towards this club. So we want to kind of divvy it out and divide it up. All of us in the club do that. So we probably will be holding on to them until later in the year. So having them separate like that allows us to decide, have more control of deciding where we're going to put our credit, the DCP credit, while not having to wait and to get approval to move on to the next level. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Okay. And that is it for the Basecamp Manager. Are there any questions? We have 8 seconds. I'm just kidding. Are there any questions about how to do a path, Basecamp Manager, anything at all? No? I'm impressed because generally they have 1,000 questions, so that's pretty good. Mark, is there anything that I didn't cover that you've seen the other trainers cover that you think is worth mentioning?
No, you pretty much covered everything.
Okay.
Well, actually, I mean, it's something minor. I mean, if you don't have, I mean, it's just very minor, but if you don't log in first and you just click on go to Basecamp, for instance, the login screen will pop up automatically. It's kind of a shortcut that we don't have to do 2 different things.
Yeah, I did not know that. It's a great tip.
It's a little
excellent
thing.
And then we also got a question asking how long the legacy program is going on and at what point Pathways will take over completely. So right now we have both the legacy program and Pathways kind of running simultaneously. And the last day for submitting your awards for the legacy program is June 30th, 2020. July 1st of 2020 will be 100% Pathways. So if you want to get your DTM or any of your levels or any of your educational awards for the legacy program, do it before June 30th, 2020. Bill Guthrie says that he's so close to his DTM. Do it, Bill, do it. You're so close, get it done. Oh, also, if you have any questions about how to get the old system, that tiny URL link I gave you has a checklist for all the things you need to do to wrap up your DTM before the legacy program goes away. So that's on there too. Have you checked out the resources on there yet, Mark? On that?
Yeah, I just looked at it when you posted it. Looks good.
Yeah.
I think there should be an additional one that has the path to DTM for Pathways.
Is it not on there?
It's not on there,
Okay,
unless I missed it.
I'll check.
Yeah,
I thought I had put it on there, but
there's a DTM path DTM Path worksheet.
That's for the legacy program.
Right. And I don't see one unless, let's see, Pathways, Base Camp, Pathways. I just, no, it's not on here.
Okay, I'll add it to that one. That's a good one. There's also a PDF on there with every single path and all the details. That has everything on it, but it's the whole thing, not just here's a checkbox. Do level 1 through 5 on one path, do level 1 through 5 on second path, then, start a club, coach a club, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Serve in the district, serve as an officer, all that stuff. Yeah. So I'll put that on there for you.
Yeah,
That's
that
a
would be
great resource. Yeah. Thank you. All right, guys. Sounds like everyone's ready to go. Pathways, rock and roll. Let's do it.
So, we're going to end the Zoom training here.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Tamala, and everyone that's attended. If you have any questions, do you want to, I'm going to end the recording.
Okay.
You can keep this thing running if you'd like.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll stay on the line if anyone needs me to.